Brock Purdy.
Sam Darnold.
Let's go.
Look, it's about production. You know I've said it. Rich Gannon won the MVP one year. So you can't hold a guy's past against him if he's doing work.
Anybody.
And Purdy was great last year. And Sam Darnold's been fantastic. Here's the thing. He's third in passer rating. They played 13 games, obviously 11-2, one of the best records in the league, top 4. 11 of his 13 games, his passer rating has been above 100.
That's great.
Like he's had two bad games, and they were bad. They were like 50, passer rating. And he's third in the league, coaching touchdowns. He got 28. Like the dude is balling. Baker's tied with him, I think, for 28 touchdowns. Yeah. But Baker's got 13 interceptions. He's only got 10. So I got to give him his credit. In the last 4 games, 11 touchdowns, no picks. Sam Darnold. Number 4, similar to Darnold. Having a very good year, not like the number 1 reason necessarily that they win, but he's playing great. Doesn't have as great a receiving core as Darnold, but Jared Goff, I got to give him credit where it's due. He's at number 4. Now, number 3, Lamar. Look, his individual play has been fantastic. His numbers are through the roof. There's a 2-time MVP who's having his best individual season numbers-wise of his career. 29 touchdowns, leads the league in touchdown percentage, and is second in interception percentage, below 1.0. It's like 0.8 interceptions. Yep. 29 touchdowns, 3 picks, so he's playing well. It's not his fault. The defense has fallen off. Yep. All right, at number 2, Saquon Barkley, still on pace to break the 40-year rushing record by Eric Dickerson. If he gets it, I might have to give it to him. I don't know if that'll sway the official voters, but I might have to give it to him depending on what Josh Allen does, and Josh Allen, of course, number 1. Last 2 weeks, Nick tried to poo-poo it, but the last 2 weeks, I don't know. It's officially in the record books as a receiving touchdown.
Yes, but
so 2 weeks ago, first quarterback ever, receiving touchdown, rushing touchdown, passing touchdown in the same game. And then last week, first player since Otto Graham in 1954 with 3 touchdowns passing, 3 touchdowns rushing in the same year. So, Coach, you talked about numbers aren't spectacular over the season, but he's doing things that we haven't seen done before, at least in a long time. So I got Josh number 1.
Great.
Yeah, I like a lot of elements of your ballot. I think that I thought you were going to have Saquon higher. And I know
number 1 then.
I thought you were going to have him at the number 1 spot. I know how much you love him, and I know the fact that you picked him to be the impact player that he really has shown to be in Philadelphia, and I didn't see that coming. So I thought in a segment that was your segment, for a guy that you
I don't like
picked,
gloating, though, Coach.
but
you haven't noticed that.
This is one, though, that you really had the ability to gloat because you called it when nobody else did. So overall, I like the entire Bruce ballot, except I would have pushed Saquon up to number 1 because it is your
So
ballot.
that's because you and I are the Saquon guys, Coach.
Yeah,
Brew used to be, but he's abandoned his perch. Listen, I think that there are a couple things that are potentially going to hurt Josh. One is the run against the Chiefs, which was like the moment of the season up to that point, is drastically less impactful if they don't end up getting the 1 seed or a higher, that was the play that gave them the tiebreaker versus the Chiefs, beat the, you know what I mean?
That's
And so now.
But it is a victory over the Chiefs.
No, it is. So it is, and it was a great play and a game-winning play. It was 4th down. If they don't get it, I think Mahomes gets the ball and marches down, and the Chiefs are sitting here undefeated. So I'm not saying it wasn't important for them, and psychologically, I think they needed that, even though it was still just the regular season. But it loses a little bit of flair. The other thing that hurts Josh is last year Lamar didn't have amazing numbers, but the team was 14-3 in the, or I think it was 14, whatever it was. I know they rested the final week. Whatever, they had the best record in football, and so if the Bills lose, the Bills just lost. You just mentioned when you said Darnold 11-2, one of the 4 best records. I was like, no, there's 5, and I was like, oh no, the Bills don't have 2 losses anymore. They have 5, or they have 3. Pardon me. They're 5th in the league. And if they lose this week, Coach, to the Lions, and all of a sudden they're 10-4, and he doesn't have those great records, and I worry that I think Saquon's only path, and I think he's the MVP right now, is breaking Dickerson's record. I think it's become such a quarterback-centric award that if he doesn't break that record, he's not going to get it. Which means if Josh's stock is a little too high, Saquon, if he doesn't break the record, the guy who could beat Saquon or beat Josh on national TV with 11 or 12-1 team against a 10-3 team, you know who I think is going to be moving up your ballot over the next 2 weeks, Brew? You know who it is. Damn it, it fell out. It was too small.
What?
The coach wasn't here last
Coach
week.
said
And he
no.
doesn't watch. Don't worry, Coach. I have a
Coach,
spare. You know who this is.
You are
You
better
know who that
off
is.
not knowing.
You know who it is. KW, how can people say I'm hating on him when I'm the only person on TV saying I think he's going to win league MVP? Figure square that circle for me.
You know, it's interesting. A lot of people say, someone recently joked and said I'm like Nick Wright's cousin, or people said that I have a lot more in common than Nick Wright. and you know, recently I made a video where I quoted Mad Men. I did it on Monday night, and I literally showed the clip from Mad Men. That's what the money's for. And then Nick Wright on Tuesday literally quoted that clip, which was me. I did it first. Obviously, we got the timeline right. I went there first, and now I'll make statements where I'm like, "How can you call me a hater when I'm saying this, and this?" And now he's saying that, and it's like, you know, I don't know how I feel about all this. But let's talk about this. I do think Nick brings up, and this is when I like when Nick actually uses his intelligence to unpack some of these things that are not as obvious, because it is actually how my mind works as well. And I do see the path for Jared Goff to be the MVP, right? If he beats Josh Allen and Jared Goff balls out, I don't think Jared Goff could have like an average game. I don't think it could be like I always make up numbers here because who really knows? Like, 22 for 33, 210 yards, but they win, right? Like, I don't think it could be like that. I think if it's like a legit matchup, a kind of like a Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, Chiefs versus Bills, then and Jared Goff wins, and there is like a real moment where Jared Goff, hits Amon-Ra St. Brown for on a beautiful pass or something like that in the final 2 minutes, like something that's just a little bit more prominent and concrete, and they get the win, then yeah, I could really see Jared Goff really skyrocketing up there and maybe even leapfrogging Saquon Barkley. I don't think Saquon Barkley's MVP should really be like, if he breaks the record, he's the MVP. If he doesn't break the record, he's not the MVP. That doesn't actually make sense. Like that logic doesn't really add up. It really doesn't. That doesn't really honestly make sense. So if he's 50 yards short of the record, then he's not the MVP. But if he does get an extra 50 yards, then he is the MVP. That doesn't make sense. The value for that actually truly, like, there's no actual reason how that should add up to that. It just doesn't. I haven't seen it. And this is what I've been saying about my kind of whole MVP comparisons between especially Saquon Barkley and Josh Allen, and I guess at this point just any of these other quarterbacks, is like, we know the quarterback is the most valuable position in sports, especially obviously in the NFL. So that's always going to be weighted to that. But we have to kind of look beyond that to a degree, and I'm just not sure how reliably or how accurately or how consistently we can actually do that. And that is why we really do need separate awards, honestly, for all of these things, which is what they talked about before in their last time when they talked about this, having like a Cy Young award and stuff like that, like they do in baseball. And I think that would make a lot more sense. But I'm not going to kind of go on that whole rant. I just want to say that, like, when you think about what Saquon has been able to do, Saquon has been able to literally reinvent the Philadelphia Eagles offense. I mean, it all stops and starts with Saquon Barkley right now. There is such an insane reliability and reliance on Saquon himself, which is what the 49ers were doing with Christian McCaffrey, except Christian McCaffrey obviously was balling out last season, but like, so was Purdy in a way where he was putting up top numbers, and so was Ayuk and Debo and Kittle. Like, that was a very high-powered offense, and so as dynamic and as important Christian McCaffrey was, there was still plenty of others to go around. Now, the Eagles still, obviously, they have a great roster. They have A.J. Brown, Devontae, and all of that, and Jalen Hurts. But as we know, especially with A.J. Brown complaining and Devontae and both of those players being injured and Dallas Goedert being injured and all of that, the constant has been Saquon Barkley. He has been the true constant. And when he doesn't bring his 100% A game, or if he's not flawless and he drops a pass, they lose the game. They lost the game against the Falcons. And when they went to Tampa Bay, they originally didn't really use Saquon Barkley, and the offense went nowhere. And then when they actually did use Saquon Barkley, when it was a little too late, and also the heat was just exhausting, so you could only rely so heavily on Saquon at that point, he was the one that got that offense finally going. He was actually moving the change, getting some big gains. But then it was sweltering. It was so humid and so hot. He had to then go on the sideline. He had to get oxygen. I mean, it was just like you could only expect so much from any player, honestly, in that moment. And so you could see the importance of Saquon. Now, again, we can't compare those moments to essentially any quarterback. Because technically, I was going to say Baker Mayfield, but I don't want to keep using Baker as an example. I don't know, name any other quarterback right now that's not like a superstar quarterback. Oh my God, I can't think of one off the top of my head because every other quarterback that I think is like kind of struggling. Derek Carr, there we go. I know he's kind of banged up and injured, but like Derek Carr is technically more important to the Saints than any other running back, right? You take away Derek Carr and the Saints are even worse than they are right now. Right, there'll be a huge drop-off. It'll be very difficult for them to find a way to win games, as we saw with Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins. You could still see a path forward without Saquon Barkley. That's not to say that Saquon Barkley is not important. It's just how important the quarterback position is. And so this conversation will always be flawed, will always be problematic. I could see myself in the future, honestly, like not even really wanting to address this because I just don't, unless we're just talking about 5 quarterbacks and there is no great running back or wide receiver or whoever's in the conversation, I just like, I don't know what else can be said. It's such a quarterback-driven award because the quarterback position is just so wildly important that it's like, of course. I mean, look what Josh Allen, Josh Allen can throw and run and catch and jump and this and that. There's just only so much that a running back can do in any given moment relative to a quarterback. So it's just always going to be flawed. So the conversations and the debates we can have, there's no reliable way to have the conversation. It's like I'm trying to debate 1 + 1 = 2, and you're trying to debate that 3 + 3 = 6, and it's like, well, yeah, they're both right. We can't compare the two. We can't compare them. 3 + 3 is 6. You're right. And 1 + 1, it does equal 2. So at the same time, we could say Saquon Barkley is the most valuable player. And we could also say Josh Allen is the most valuable player. Like it just becomes an impossible discussion to have. And I watch a clip like this and I'm hoping that maybe like something else will kind of spark another interesting take will kind of arise. And that's actually why the most interesting take to me is the Jared Goff kind of coming from behind to win this because of the potential of beating Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills, getting the #1 seed, and you look at the narrative because this is a narrative-based award. And it would be fascinating if, let's say the Philadelphia Eagles come away with the #1 seed. Let's say they do. And let's say Josh Allen doesn't and the Buffalo Bills, and they have the 2 seed. If memory serves me correctly, unless they really start to lose games, they should probably be pretty locked in the 2 seed. I don't know if there's risk for them to drop down even further. But it would be fascinating. Let's say the Eagles win every game from here on out. And Saquon Barkley doesn't break the record, but he's shy by 100 yards or whatever. But the Eagles have the #1 seed, home field advantage, and it's obvious that Saquon Barkley was a massive reason for that. Is he the MVP when the Buffalo Bills are the 1 seed or the 2 seed with 4 losses? Maybe 5 losses. It would probably be 4 because then they would have to lose to the Patriots or the Giants. The Patriots or the Jets. which is probably unlikely. So I don't know. Like that's what's going to be so interesting to see, because there's also the real chance that the Eagles are just the number 2 seed and the Bills are a 2 seed. Now you got two teams that are a 2 seed, but then again, it also feels like, and this is where you're starting to like try to pull all these threads, because it's like, all right, well, if Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills do manage to get the 1 seed, let's say the Chiefs do lose a couple games and the Bills beat the Lions, who many people have, because Nick's also not looking at it from the opposite direction, because let's say Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills now beat Jared Goff and the Lions. Most people see the Lions as the top team in the NFL. Colin just did his herd hierarchy and has them the number 1 seed, as many people do, at the very least top 2. So now if Josh Allen beats that team and has a great day, sure, maybe some people will use excuses and say, oh, injuries and whatnot, but it's, who's to really say how that game unfolds? And then now they just knock down the number 1 team in the NFC, which would theoretically be, right, technically, if we had to like just go strictly mathematical, technically the Lions are going to be the front runners to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. So this is the NFC Championship contender that Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills would then have just knocked down. That's a huge win. And it would be a bigger win for the Bills to beat the Lions than the Lions to beat the Bills, because the Bills just lost to the Rams, so and that's why it all depends on what narrative do we want to construct and how do we want to construct it. This is all narrative, 100% narrative. It's not always 100% in the reality, because you could make the argument that the top 20 quarterbacks are more important than any other positional player, right? Like, it's just, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting, honestly. And that's why, as I feel obligated to say this in all these videos, it's like my own way to like kind of be a safety net. That's why I don't really care about these MVP awards. And I feel I'll just say that for every MVP video that I make, just to really highlight it. I actually really don't care, because it's just made up. It's just not, and that's why I don't use it against Josh Allen for not having MVPs. And when I'm getting in debates with people, comparing Josh Allen to Lamar Jackson, people say, well, Lamar Jackson's a 2-time MVP, and or Lamar Jackson's a 2-time MVP and Josh Allen isn't. And I'm like, okay, that means absolutely nothing to me. I could literally care less. It truly means nothing to me, right? So, yeah, I don't know. But it does offer, at least at the very least, what Saquon has done for this right now has offered, I think, a pretty fascinating question of like, what is the MVP? What does it mean? How is this voted for? Where are the narratives? The fact that Jared Goff is now going to play Josh Allen, is that on Thursday or Sunday? I don't remember now. Like, that is going to be a game where, yeah, if Jared Goff wins, then there will be, like, I guarantee you, and Nick is right with this, that next day, whether it's Friday or Monday or whatever, there will be, like, I think the Rams and the 49ers play on Thursday, so I assume this game's then Sunday. They'll be saying, it'll be the talk of the town. It'll be the headlines, is Jared Goff the MVP, right? Like, that is really what it will be. Just like when Josh Allen lost against the Rams but played unbelievable, like many of the main segments were, did Josh Allen lock up the MVP? So, I don't know. All interesting stuff to me. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Brew's MVP ballot, and who do you think should be the MVP? Do you agree with Nick that it should be Saquon Barkley as well as Mangini? I don't know. It was kind of confusing. I don't know if Mangini was saying it was Saquon or he just thought Brew was going to put Saquon. What about the fact that Jared Goff will kind of sweep in, come from 4th all the way up to 1st? And, I guess the honorable mention of Sam Darnold. I didn't really address Sam Darnold too much, just because I don't think he's going to have a chance to win the MVP. I praise Sam Darnold, has defended him, and think he's been playing great. But realistically, I don't think he has a legitimate chance to win the MVP. I guess maybe if he balls out. I guess maybe if Josh, it's so hard to say, but I was going to say maybe if the Vikings end up getting the number 1 seed, I think it's a possibility, but I think the average person does not give enough credit to Sam Darnold, so I think realistically the likelihood is not. Maybe if the Vikings had to beat the Eagles and the Lions to kind of get to the number 1 seed, then I could maybe see it, or also have to beat Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, but that's not what their schedule is, so I think it's just from a narrative base, I think it makes it a little bit harder. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here. And I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.